right now at 5:30. The calendar may say November, but we're thinking ahead to winter.
From the return of a weather phenomenon to how East Tennessee is preparing for the possibility of snow and ice.
We'll get you updated, informed, and prepared for what might happen this winter season.
Well, how about that for an opener? Get you ready for winter weather. We had so much fun getting prepped and ready for this winter weather outlook, guys.
We certainly did. Well, winter weather is heading back into the area, and we've already had a few doses of it this year, but we're going to continue to talk much more about it.
We see all kinds of weather during the winter season in East Tennessee, from severe weather to rain to sleet to snow, and sometimes we do all of that in the same day.
So as you can imagine, forecasting exactly who is going to see what, when, can be kind of tricky, which is why we want to get you prepared now so you'll be ready for anything as we go through the winter season.
All right, and good evening and welcome to our winter weather outlook. We are going to talk about your official winter weather forecast coming up in just a bit.
But first, let's look at the guiding force that we'll be looking at this winter.
Now, it's a name that many of you have heard. Let's take a look at what El Nino is and how it can affect the United States.
The El Nino Southern Oscillation, also known as ENSO, is a large-scale weather pattern determined by the warming and cooling of the eastern and central Pacific Ocean. The cool phase is called La Nina, and the warm phase is called El Nino, and that's the phase that we're in right now with those unseasonably warm waters out there in the central and eastern Pacific. We also have two branches of the jet stream. We have the polar jet, which brings that cold air down from the poles, and then we have the Pacific jet that is energized when we have an El Nino with those very warm waters. And both of those jet streams, depending on how they interact, control the weather that we'll see across the lower 48 this winter season. Now, part of the reason we're talking so much about El Nino is because for the last 3 years in a row, we've had La Ninas during the winter and the spring seasons. So this is a big change compared to what we've been seeing recently.
Exactly. And El Nino is not necessarily La Nina's brother. It's a totally different scenario. Yes, we're going to be talking much more about that in this particular segment. And as we enter into the winter weather season, there's a few things that need to be taken care of as the temperatures drop, one of which many of you may have felt the impact of last year: frozen pipes and broken furnaces.
We had one at our house. Keep in mind that the cold snap that we had last year was a rare one, but it can certainly happen. Again, as we just mentioned, the frigid temperatures that we had last December were some of the coldest that we've had in the month of December since 1989. Whitney Mitchell with Pipe Wrench Plumbing and Heating says that it's important to do a quick walk around your house to make sure it's ready to go.
The best thing to do, of course, is go around the exterior of your home and the inside of your home and check for any uncovered pipes. So we want to make sure that any exposed pipes to the elements are covered to keep them heated and warm from freezing.
Now, if your pipes do freeze, shut off the water using the emergency water valve, usually on the side of your house. You can also try to keep a drip of water running in the sinks to prevent this from happening, which we also had to do last year. She also recommends getting your HVAC system checked yearly to make sure it is cleaned and working properly. And I know last year we had that 1 week where it was like crazy cold right during Christmas.
I mean, we all remember that. We had all of our winter came in about 3 or 4 days. I mean, that Arctic blast, many people dealt with those frozen pipes. That was definitely an issue.
And definitely the coldest temperatures seen in the entire winter season by far.
Yeah, absolutely, even before Christmas. All right, so we've talked about what El Nino is as a large-scale climate pattern, but how does it affect East Tennessee?
I sat down with Brandon Wasilewski from the National Weather Service in Morristown to discuss those potential impacts.
El Nino can vary very significantly in our area.
Typically, the impacts from El Nino are going to be stronger to our north and south. That means that the effects of this large-scale weather pattern can be highly variable in Tennessee.
We've had some of our snowiest winters in an El Nino, but we've also had some that are very mild and with very minimal snowfall.
While the precipitation totals can vary widely, there is a stronger trend when it comes to temperatures.
If we look from like 1950 to 2022, 8 of the top 10 coldest winters in Knoxville have been in an El Nino.
But El Nino isn't the only factor that affects our weather in the eastern U.S. The Arctic Oscillation and North Atlantic Oscillation can play a much bigger role in determining when that cold air will come plunging into the southeast.
Unfortunately, a lot of those can't be predicted on a seasonal scale, at least accurately.
So to summarize, every El Nino is different, and there can be a lot of variability in our weather from one year to the next. Brandon's advice? Be prepared for anything and everything this winter season.
We know that winter in East Tennessee, we can see a lot of different impacts, a lot of different patterns ranging from snow to flooding to cold. So I would just advise people to stay up to date with the latest forecast and be prepared for anything as we head into the winter.
Bye, great info, Cassie. Thank you. But coming up, a look at winter weather folklore. For every persimmon seed and woolly worm you hear about, there's a little bit of speculation that comes along with it. Cassie's going to sort it all out after this break.
And it's the rite of passage for most kids enjoying a snow day. We'll look at what goes into making that important call to cancel classes because of snow and ice.
Welcome back, everybody. It is time to take a break from technology and step away from the computer models to talk about what Mother Nature might think that we have in store for this winter season with our winter weather folklore. First, we're going to start with animals and nature, talking about those acorns. Animals' fur grows thicker in advance of colder winters, and typically we have a large massed crop of acorns to help the animals prepare for the cold season ahead. I talked to the National Park Service and they said everything looks just about average to them for this season, so no strong indication one way or another from that standpoint. Then on to the woolly worms. The 13 segments of their body represent the 13 weeks of winter. At the Woolly Worm Festival in Banner Elk, North Carolina this year, the winner's name was Jeffrey. And Jeffrey looks just about like this worm does, indicating that we would have a cold start to winter, a mild middle, and then a harsh finish with the colors on their bodies. Now to the persimmon seeds. This was a cutting that happened at the Hiwassee-Ocoee State Park, showing spoons, knives, and forks what the inner root looks like of those seeds. Well, based on their cutting, we're going to have a lot of snow to shovel with so many of those spoons showing up. Knives indicate a sharp cold, and forks indicate where we'll have mild temperatures. Finally, the fogs in August. Now, the number of fogs in August equals the number of snows in winter. And this year, we had 15 days with fog reported in the month of August, and 3 of those days were dense. That would indicate that we would have 15 snow events during the upcoming winter season. So based on our winter weather folklore, it looks like you should be prepared with those shovels just in case we have a snowy season ahead. And we'll have more from our winter weather outlook coming up.
Thank you. All right, let's get back to our winter weather outlook. There are a lot of variables when it comes to predicting the weather, especially in the winter.
Which is something we, of course, know all too well. And when we talk about winter patterns, there are 2 specific places that we watch for our storms to come from.
Here's Todd. He's going to talk a little bit more on that.
There are 2 main types of favorable winter weather patterns to see snowfall for us in East Tennessee. The first main type is an Alberta clipper. Now, this originates, you guessed it, up in Alberta, Canada, and northwest Canada, and it's a fast-moving system. Because of its fast movement, limited moisture, and so usually light amounts of snowfall associated with an Alberta clipper as it zips on from northwest to southeast. A quick shot of cold air and some gusty winds, usually more favorable snowfall with the upslope flow into the mountains and the southern Appalachians. Light amounts of snow, usually Alberta clippers are good for maybe 1 to 2 inches of snowfall. Where could you see heavier snow? A Gulf low or a southern slider originates near the Louisiana coastline of the Gulf. If there's cold air in place and significant moisture with a favorable track for that low pressure up into the mountains, that's when you can see moderate to heavier snowfall in the wake of that favorable low pressure storm track.
Now, the track of the storm is difficult enough to predict, but the placement of the cold air can make a difference in what type of precipitation that we get.
Yeah, absolutely. We can see all 4 of these different precipitation types sometimes in one day. It all depends on the atmospheric profile. This graphic helps explain what we mean. Let's talk about this. You see the wedge of warm air to the right-hand side. You've got all cold air on the left-hand side. When it's sufficiently cold throughout the atmosphere, that's when you get all snow. On the far right-hand side, when it's sufficiently warm, it actually starts at snow, but then it quickly changes to rain. Now, Becca, Tavian, and Cassie, let's talk about the 2 in between. You got, on the right-hand side, you got freezing
Do
rain.
we really have to?
Oh my, yeah, freezing rain. That's one of the worst, right?
It really is. You know, when you talk about some of that colder air near the surface, that's where we can really create some messes. Bridges and overpasses in particular, when we're talking about freezing rain, can be a little bit more of a concern. Sleet sometimes can kind of be that more of a disguise as to what it really is. Is it snow or is it kind of that freezing rain? We get a lot of people that ask us that question mark around that.
Yeah, kind of a frozen raindrop, if you will, that bounces off the ground.
Sleet has a beat.
Sleet has a beat.
Sleet has a beat. You can see it bouncing into the little pitter-pattering. So to help visualize,
Kind of like that, maybe not.
yeah, to help us visualize what's going on, I brought in some donuts here. So what I wanted to show
great.
was the glazed donuts are what happens when you have freezing rain. That's a liquid drop that falls on a surface and freezes on contact, creating a glaze. Then you also have the sprinkle donuts. Those represent sleet, because those are little ice pellets that can accumulate on things. So that's the difference. Glazed is freezing rain, sleet is little pellets on there. We have a lot of people who say, oh my gosh, we have freezing rain, but it's because they have sleet. It's raindrops that are freezing on their way down.
Yeah.
So I understand that that's confusing, but I thought donuts might help us explain. And one of them is missing.
Yeah, sorry, I got hungry. I got hungry. A boy's got to eat. A boy has got to eat.
What did you have? Did you have a sleet donut?
He had a sleet
I had a
donut.
sweet donut, yep,
It
and
was
it was
awesome.
delicious. We love all donuts. But listen, the biggest concern for most of us in the winter outside of our homes are the roads.
Yeah, the folks who maintain the state's highway are working ahead of the storm.
Yeah, here is TDOT spokesperson Mark Nagy with more on how they will weather the storms.
Our crews will look to those heavily traveled interstates first. I mean, around Knoxville, we've obviously seen so much growth over the past, 10, 20 years, and we get more and more cars on our roadways. So I-40, I-75, looking into Upper East, I-81, I-26, they get really packed. So those are the top priorities. State routes are very heavily traveled. So then we'll go to places like that. And then after that, it's secondary state routes. I think sometimes people ask, what about my neighborhood? When are you going to get to that? Well, remember, TDOT, we're responsible for interstates and state routes. And we've got more than 9,000 lane miles that we are responsible for with those interstates and state routes. So our crews will get on their routes, and they end up staying on their routes as long as necessary during, before, during, and after any winter weather event. You want to be able to get to where you're going, but remember, the safest place that you can be during any winter weather event is at home. If there is rain that precedes a winter weather event, you won't see very much pre-treating taking place, because quite often the supplies that we would put down on the roadways would then just wash right off when you get that kind of rain. If you see our plows out there, you see crews that are pre-treating roadways, trying to get that slush and snow off of the roadways, give them extra room.
All right, excellent information from Mark Nagy at TDOT. For more information, you can go to smartway.tn.gov.
And of course, we will work to keep you updated on the weather, the roads, and of course, that familiar ticker at the bottom of your screen while we enjoy donuts. I wanted to point out, everybody picks sleet because no one likes freezing rain.
That's true.
But I actually love freezing rain, so I'll take care of it.
There you go, Cassie. Well, you're not the only one that looks into what goes into calling the all-important and much-anticipated snow day.
Mark, set, go!
It's a day that many students look forward to every year, a snow day.
Careful!
But as of the last few years, snow days might have started to look a little bit different.
Snow days are snow days for us. So the state does allow you to have a virtual day if you want to, but it's kind of limited in what it can do every semester. But, I mean, they're part of the culture of being in schools.
When it comes to the decision of calling a snow day, there's a few factors that come into place.
Contractors will be out on the roads. Our transportation team will be out on the road early that morning. Our security team's out on the road. So during that call, all the assistant superintendents are on, our communications team's on, and, we kind of get a report from around the county because, as you know, Knox County, over 500 square miles, it can be fine and fair getting 2 inches of snow in Coreyton.
Superintendent Ryswick says that they like to have the call in place as early as possible to help families plan ahead and to keep everyone safe.
We understand families trust their kids with us, and we take that serious.
So one common misconception is that we, as meteorologists, are the ones who get to call a snow day, but really we are just the news entity that gets to report it. And as always, with any cancellation or delay, you can check our website for the very latest, and with any winter weather alerts, we'll be running them on the bottom of our screen.
And kids aren't the only ones who get a little excited about snow.
So, yeah, unfortunately. So let's talk a little bit more about social mediaologists, people who can post misleading info when snow first appears in the models. Models are not as perfect as they seem. They're a tool to assist in a forecast, but they're not the forecast itself. But you'll still see social mediaologists posting long-range forecasts as facts. Some may be weather geeks like us, but others are just bad actors, creating panic to get your clicks and engagement for money. I spoke to Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich from our sister station in Charlotte, and he shared an interesting analogy.
A lot of the information out there is like fast food, right? Like apps. It's the fast food of weather information. Yeah, it's great for a quick bite to eat, but you shouldn't be consuming it at every meal every day, right? You should take the time to have a good home cooked meal. And that's where local meteorologists come in, right? It's somebody local who understands the information.
So you have that connection with us, but how do you discern info from other sources? For that, I reached out to Ben Horn, a misinformation expert at UT.
Humans are wired to engage with this negative, highly emotional content, and sort of to step back when you see that highly emotional content and say, is this legitimate? One, check your sources, and two, take a step back from the highly emotional language.
Now, if you're one of those weather geeks who just has questions, instead of interacting with an unreputable account, reach out to us, because we're here to help. But stay tuned, your official winter weather forecast comes right after this break.
I haven't even finished my donut yet, but it's good. It's time for our official winter weather forecast. Now, folks, here are the numbers. Take a look at them by region, Plateau Valley and foothills, and it can be highly variable this winter weather season, how much snow we could see. These are close to the averages, maybe a little bit more in some areas, potentially.
And that's the main thing we've been trying to emphasize is the uncertainty that comes with El Nino. We looked back on some analog years. Some of them were the least snowiest we've ever seen, and others were the snowiest. So there's a lot of variability coming this year.
But we're also balancing that with the extreme heat that we've been seeing recently, even getting up into this point of the fall, and a lot of the dry conditions that we've been seeing as well, because that's going to have an impact on what we see this coming winter.
It is, and not just the warm weather and the dry conditions we've seen here, but globally, sea surface temperatures are the warmest that they've ever been. So realistically, we're going into kind of an unprecedented situation, and it makes forecasting kind of difficult looking ahead this winter season.
Yeah, and regardless how much snow we see, we're hoping it flips and changes for more rainfall to help us get out of this drought in time. That's what we're hoping for.
From some of that moisture.
Yeah.
We absolutely need to see that. And of course, we'll always keep you up to date here on WBIR. You can find us on our app, on our webpage, and we'll be on TV for you, keeping you up to date on the latest.
All right, Channel 10 weather team, great job. Thank you for watching. Stay warm and have a good evening.
See you.